I love you, Lord, my strength. Today's responsorial psalm rings true in our hearts. I love you, Lord, my strength. I love you, O Lord, my strength, O Lord, my rock, my fortress, my deliverer, my rock, my fortress. I am protected when I put my strength, my trust in the Lord. This is amazing to us because Jesus is our rock, our refuge. He is our shelter in the midst of the storms of life. And the scribe today in our Holy Gospel comes to Jesus and asks him a question. What's the greatest commandment? The Jewish tradition, there were many things commanded, both by the scribes and Pharisees, prescriptions of the law. They were told to wash a certain amount of their arm, wash bowls, cups, the kosher laws. So the scribe comes up to Jesus and says, what's the greatest commandment? But it doesn't give us the whole picture because this is the last of those scribes and Pharisees and Sadducees who come to Jesus and tempt him, ask him, trying to trap him in the law. Render unto Caesar comes before this, the resurrection of the dead, in which they will not be given in marriage nor be married in heaven. The Sadducees say this man had seven wives because every time he married her, she would die. And even before that, render under Caesar. These different tests that the scribes, Pharisees, and Sadducees come to Jesus and they're trying to trap him. And then all of a sudden we get this scribe who comes up and says, what's the greatest commandment? Jesus responds, the Lord is one. You shall love him with all your heart, mind, understanding, and soul. And Jesus sees, he perceives that this scribe is different, that he is searching, and responds correctly and says, you are right, teacher. He is one. We should love, and we should love our neighbor as ourselves. And Jesus says, you're not far from the kingdom of God. How I long that Jesus would say that to me. Notice that he didn't tell the scribe, you are in the kingdom of God. You've already achieved it. No, you're not far. You've almost got it. But the other scribes and Pharisees, you could say that they came to Jesus and said, come at me, bro. Come on. Say something so I can arrest you. Say something so that I can trap you, that you don't know the law as much as I do. Recognize that I know better than you. Were they really saying, I love you, Lord, my strength? Those are words of humility. Recognizing that I'm not strong enough. I am weak. I'm sinful. Recognizing that I need a refuge. I need a fortress. I need a shelter. I'm not strong enough. But I love you, Lord, for you are my strength. If I was to ask my brothers if that is what they get from me, I hate to say it, but they might not say that. They might say, well, you're close. You kind of live for God, but there's these things that keep tripping us up, right? Maybe a little disobedience here, maybe a twist of the poverty rules here, maybe even, playing with chastity. How many priests are doing that? Making excuses, going at Jesus, saying, you didn't mean it this way, right? No, couldn't have known that. I mean, if Jesus was in this time, he wouldn't be saying that. I mean, literally, Jesus, you can't be saying that. Seriously? In this 20th century? No, Jesus, that's too much to put on them. Oh, Jesus, no. You didn't know what you were doing. I'm so glad that Father Seamus came into the world, that he can show Jesus exactly how it should be. No. The greatest advice was what Moses was telling the Israelite people. He's telling families, hear this, O Israel. Be careful to observe the commandments of the Lord. The Lord is God, the Lord alone. The Lord alone. Therefore you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And he goes even further to reemphasize it. He says, don't just think about this, take it to heart. Take to heart these words which I enjoin on you today. Jesus is echoing those words and fulfilling those words, uniting them, not just to serve and love God, but love your neighbor as yourself. And I heard a priest just recently say, this love is diffusive. It's overflowing. It means that I love God with all my heart, mind, body, and strength, and that is so overflowing that it actually is poured forth upon the people that I come into contact with. It's not that hard. It's not that hard, right? As we said in our collect today, Lord, let us hasten to meet you and not stumble. Hasten without stumbling to come to meet you. Because the reality of our Catholic faith, and you've heard it from this pulpit for decades, that the Lord is our strength in this time of need. The Lord is bigger than everything in this world. He promised us tribulation in this world, but he said, take courage, be not afraid, for I have overcome the world. Not Father Seamus, not Father Andy, not my mom or dad, not my brothers and sisters, but God himself, Jesus. And we have a great high priest. The letter to the Hebrews tells us this. You've heard it the last 3 weeks in a row. Put your trust in the high priest who doesn't have to offer sacrifices for the forgiveness of his sins. He is perfect. He is infinite. He is God himself, and he gives us himself on this altar, and you receive him right here, right now in a few minutes. I love you, Lord, my strength. I love you, not just because you give me good things, not just because you're like some fantasy creature that gives me presents all the time. Not like some ATM machine, God, where if I put in my prayers, I'll get the cash out and I'll be able to go do whatever I want. God is not an ATM machine. He is not a fantasy creature. He is real, true, beautiful, and good, and wills our salvation because he sent his son to suffer and die for us. You have the proof of his love, and you're about to receive it right now. And as Moses said in our first reading, take this to heart. Love God with your whole heart, mind, body, and soul. What does this mean? This means that when I go to work, I'm different from everybody else. When you're in my house, we practice chastity, we practice modesty, we practice love for one another, we practice prudence in our speech. As for me and my house, like Joshua, we will serve the Lord. I don't care what you all do. You see it at Hobby Lobby all the time. As for my house, we're going to serve the Lord. What does that mean? That means your house is different than all the other houses that you go to. That means that this religious community has to be different from every other religious community that you see. As for those that serve the Lord, you know that they will be different. Why? Jesus promised us. You want to know who's a disciple of Jesus Christ? You'll know them by their love. By their love. By their love. Not what form of the Mass they go to. Not that they hunker down and homeschool their kids. Not that they do this or that good work. No, by their love. By their love. That means not compromising. We've said that over and over. You want to join a resistance movement? Join the resistance of love, heeding Jesus' call. Why? Because this is the track record of the saints. This is what differentiated them who lived heroic virtue. Virtue. What a bad word in this world. Heroic virtue. Not just virtue, but heroically chose to love in the midst of this world. We just celebrated All Saints' Day, so I don't want to repeat my homily again, because you probably heard it. But the idea is follow the wisdom of the saints. Follow Jesus Christ. And as we said, Moses says, take this to heart. Who's the person that we see in the Holy Gospels who takes these things to heart? Our Blessed Mother Mary. She sees, walks with Jesus every step of the way. And what does Luke say? She pondered all these things in her heart. Guess what? Tomorrow, this novice and postulants, they're going to start the total consecration to Mary. Why? Because they want to imitate Mary. the disciple of Christ, par excellence. She was his mother. She knew the intimacy of Jesus Christ. She lived his love, and her blood flowed through his veins. She gave him life. She gives us and points us to the bread of life. I could talk about Mary forever, of course, as you know from last Sunday. But the idea is she pondered these things in her heart. Do we ponder those things in our heart? Do we say, Lord, you are my strength. I love you. I trust that you are my rock. You are my refuge. You are my shelter. Because when we do that, Lord, when we do that, man, does the joy come into our life. When we choose love in the midst of those difficulties, we could skip around because Christ is so full in our heart. His love and mercy endure forever, and it overflows upon me, a pathetic sinner. But a pathetic sinner who knows, I don't have all the answers, but I know a guy who does. So, of course, our Blessed Mother's advice, it's probably the best we could say right now. Do whatever he tells you. Do whatever he tells you. Love the Lord with all your heart, mind, body, soul, strength, everything you got. Because he is our strength, and we love him so much. Lord, save us. Save us.